So I thought we'd check in at what's going on at the University of Manchester. It's weird and very woke and not somewhere I would want to go. But before we begin, I'd like to direct your attention to lotus.com and I think possibly my most important piece of work on there, which is the Thick Concepts podcast, which is how moral concepts have depth. You can't thin them out to being just one thing and try and narrow it down to just that, because we have inherited a bunch of words and a bunch of concepts that have multiple layers, and these are stacked together and they are inseparable. And that is going to be important to understand for this segment. So they're hiring the best and brightest over at Manchester University, such as historian, broadcaster and filmmaker David Olusoga. Ever heard of him?
I have heard of him. I'm actually relatively interested in reading his book that he's got out, Black and British. Yes, if only to see just how much racial hatred is contained within those pages.
Yes, there's going to be quite a lot, because he's joined the university as the Professor of Public History. He presented the landmark BBC series Civilizations in 2018, and is one of the UK's foremost historians on the subject of empire, race and slavery. Well, wonderful.
Well, that's the annoying thing to me about someone like this man, which is the book, the idea of Black and British. I actually think it's quite interesting to look at the way maybe different cultures interacted with the British pre-20th century. But the only reason that he is writing a book like this is for the political element of it. It's not just out of the historical curiosity.
It's definitely about some kind of hatred. But anyway, he left university, became a television producer, and his most recent TV series is Black and British, A Forgotten History, The World's War, A House Through Time, and the BAFTA award-winning Britain's Forgotten Slave Owners. That's because that's the only interaction that Britain had with the slave trade, owning slaves.
That's the only one.
Yeah. So Professor I can't even pronounce these names, Alessandro Scheizero, the head of the School of Arts, Languages and Cultures at the University of Manchester, said, his insightful and inspiring research addresses some of the thorniest issues of human history, and his passion and clarity and depth set a very high standard. His appointment as Professor of Public History at the University of Manchester further strengthens our commitment to broadening the curriculum and playing an active role in the public engagement with historical studies. Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So, moving on, what else are they doing at the University of Manchester? Well, some Swedish researcher is doing the worst thing I can possibly imagine.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I specialise in child pornography, no reason. It's just where my interests took me.
Well, it's not just that he specialises over it. He wanted to get into the mindset of someone who enjoys child porn by masturbating to it.
To think like the pedo, you must behave like the pedo.
Yes, that's exactly his thesis.
I've just got to say, one, I'm so glad I don't live in Manchester anymore. Two, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm glad I went to Salford University rather than the University of Manchester. Looking at all this, I mean, Jesus Christ.
So this is Swedish-born Carl Anderson, who's at the University of Manchester, and describes his research as a focus on fans of subcultural comics in Japan who experience desire and think about sexual identities. So he published a paper in the Journal of Qualitative Research titled I Am Not Alone, We Are All Alone, using masturbation as an ethnographic method in research on Shota subculture in Japan. And he describes his experimental method of masturbating to Shota pornography. Now, I didn't know what Shota meant. I've never heard of this. And so luckily, the post-millennial informed me that Shota refers to Japanese anime depicting young, prepubescent boys in sexual situations, most often with adult men. Lolicon is the female equivalent to Shota, which is Japanese anime depicting a young girl or preteen in sexual situations, often with adult men. And so that's disgusting. Why would you want to train yourself to get after that unless you already had an inclination towards it?
I mean, I hate being reminded of it because sadly through Count Dankula's memeing, I was already aware of the sorts of things that these were, but that's just vile.
Yes. And so this is what he has decided he's going to do for his research. He's going to spend his time masturbating to Shota porn. Very good.
All right, prison.
Yeah, Anna Slatz, who thoroughly researched the topic in a report for Redux magazine, said, the medium is largely regarded as a form of fancy child pornography and is illegal in many countries, including Canada and Australia as a result. It is also considered illegal in the United Kingdom, where Anderson may reside.
Whoops.
He describes masturbating to Shota, it was a form of self-care for him and the other men who consume it. It's just self-care, bro. It's just self-care. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just self-care. University of Manchester, folks. But anyway, moving on, the University of Manchester have decided what we're going to do is ban the words brother and sister and mum and dad, because why would you need those? It's for inclusivity, you see. I was going to call you Calvin. It's for inclusivity, you see, Harry. It's they've decided that their inclusive language guide for staff and students says sibling should be used instead of brother and sister.
No.
Well, this is where the thick concepts comes back into it. Because sibling is a very thin concept. It doesn't describe much other than only the relationship. And you don't know what kind of relationship it is. They are a sibling of mine, therefore they are the child of the same parent, but I don't know anything else about them.
Well, that's the thing, to tie this into something else that I did with Connor, to throw another promo in there. You should check out our book club on Michael Knowles' Speechless, because, of course, in controlling language like this, what you're doing is you're controlling people's minds, because brother and sister, like you say, have connotations to them. They're not just connotations of your relation, they are moral connotations as well. Brother and sister have a familial element to them, and a very wholesome familial element. Sibling sounds very clinical and very cold, and feels that way.
And that's specifically why they want to use it, because brother and sister have particular kinds of cultural baggage that they carry. As in, an older brother has to look after his younger sister. That's, in a particular way.
You can even use those terms, brother and sister, outside of a familial relationship to denote that you have a very strong bond with somebody.
Absolutely, but you never use the word sibling for that, which is why they're like, oh no, don't say brother and sister, use sibling. So it's kind of an interesting way of attempting to kind of atomize people away from their own familial connections. And the guide says, at Manchester, we embrace and celebrate difference and respect. We support each other to create an environment where everyone is able to reach their full potential by making sure that you don't use the words brother and sister and mum and dad. I don't see how that contributes, but then I'm not going to go off on a big one because I could. But the term elderly has also been banned in favor of older people. Because again, the elderly, that has a moral connotation to it that comes with excess cultural baggage. You should be polite and respectful and, do favors for the elderly. But for older people, well, they're just like me, aren't they? They're just older. Who cares? Just there's a point in chronology now. And Tory MP Nigel Mills said, this is shocking. Freedom of speech is incredibly important. It's like, yeah, okay. But that really doesn't drive at the heart of the real problem here, which is they're trying to inculcate a kind of atomization into the students there. That's the problem. Breaking up families is what this is the ultimate goal. So that's kind of the problem. Don't get me wrong, I agree, free speech is an incredibly important thing, but they don't care about that. So what do they care about? Well, they care about breaking up the family. Why? That's what you should be speaking to as a conservative.
I mean, the Tory MPs are just so neutered on something like this. Just going, freedom of speech is incredibly important. The people running the University of Manchester are just going to go, oh, okay, that's nice anyway, and do exactly what they were planning on doing already. What you need to do, if you are in a position to do something about it, I know that...
Well, like a Conservative MP with a majority in Parliament?
Perhaps, yes, but I know Manchester's a bit of a Labour stronghold, but there's still things that you could do about it. You could just say to the University of Manchester, no, you're not allowed to do that. We pay your bills, we pay your wages. No, you're not allowed to do that.
Well, at the end of the day, if they found any kind of problem there, dissolve it. Dissolve the constituency of the University of Manchester. Split it up into 2 or 3 or something. I don't know. You're the Conservative Party. You control Parliament. Parliament is absolutely sovereign in this country. Do what you like. If you want to come in and say, no, every university in this country will have mother and father being used as pronouns or whatever, kind of word they are. That's fine. You can do that. You've got the power. Just being like, oh, free speech is important. Do something about it. Do something. But anyway, so who's the new Chancellor of Manchester University? Nazir Afzal.
Never heard of him.
Well, he's a Muslim feminist.
That's a contradiction in terms, surely?
His Wikipedia bio certainly thinks so.
Okay.
He was like, yeah, I'm not the person you would most expect, but I'm a Muslim feminist. And he succeeds poet Lemn Sissay in the ceremonial role. And it's like, is there an English person at Manchester University at this point? None of the people we've talked about are English.
Well, I mean, when I went to Salford, there were plenty of English people running the classes. Apparently not in Manchester University, though. So I don't know.
But on Twitter, he dedicated his new role to his immigrant parents who came here so he could flourish. Like, great.
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're just a new frontier. And during his 24-year career as the chief crown prosecutor for Northwest England, he prosecuted some of the highest profile cases in the country, including the Rochdale grooming gang. So you think, oh, that's good. He must be based and decent.
I doubt it.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. When doing this, he was like, there's no role for religion in the abuse in Rotherham. I mean, the victims said there was. The perpetrators screamed Allahu Akbar in the courtroom.
Most
in
of
the
us...
Rochdale case.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh,
they screamed
okay.
Allahu Akbar when they were thing. And the victims said things like they were called white slags. They were told that the Quran, they were lectured from the Quran. And he's just like, well, religion's got no base in this. I mean, what are you talking about?
Obviously not.
No. He says that it was all about male power.
I mean, that's an element.
Yep. Because don't you know that the vast majority of sex offenders in Britain are white?
Oh, I wonder if that has anything to do with the majority population being white. I wonder if proportionally things might look a little bit different.
So Nazir has come to the conclusion that actually it's mostly white. The grooming gangs are a mostly white British problem. It's got nothing to do with Islam. So glad he's in charge. But anyway, that's just, things are going great in the University of Manchester. Glad I don't go there. Good luck if you do.
Thanks for watching this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. If you enjoyed that and want more, you can subscribe and become a premium member on our website, where you can access our exclusive content, including the premium live hangouts We've recently done this one, hangout number 17, Our Cyberpunk Dystopia, where Carl and Callum discuss the cyberpunk dystopia we are falling into. If you're interested in following Callum on social media, you can follow him on Getter @Callum. Thank you and goodbye.